All right, Commanders, welcome aboard. Today, we're diving headfirst into the void to really get a handle on the epic space battles of Firestorm Armada. You know, if you've ever dreamed of standing on the bridge of a massive capital ship, well, consider this your official briefing.
And yeah, that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? We're not talking about little dogfights here. This is all-out war for who rules the galaxy, fought with these just gigantic fleets. The whole point is to put you right in the Admiral's chair.
So, you've got all this incredible power at your command, but what do you actually do with it? How do you make the right calls? Okay, let's get into it. We're going to break down exactly how you take all that raw firepower and turn it into a smart, tactical win.
Okay, first up, you've got to know your ships. I mean, every single victory starts right here, with understanding what your vessels can and can't do. Think of them as your toolbox for winning the war.
So mass, you can kind of think of this as your ship's health bar, but it's a little more than that. It's really its overall toughness and size. A higher mass doesn't just mean it can take more punishment, it also affects things like boarding. Basically, bigger mass means a tougher, scarier ship to face.
Next is hull. Now, this isn't just plain old armor, it's more like a damage threshold. See, for an attack to actually do anything, it has to score enough hits to get past your hull rating. So if you have a high hull value, a weak little attack might get a few hits through your shields, but they'll just bounce right off the armor, completely useless.
Okay, shields, this is your first wall of defense. When an enemy shoots at you, the number they need to roll on their dice is typically your shield value. So, the higher your shields, the harder you are to hit, period. It forces your opponent to get lucky right out of the gate.
And then you've got point defense. This is your active defense. So after your enemy rolls and gets a bunch of successful hits, you get to fight back. You roll your point defense dice, and for every success you get, you cancel one of their hits. It's literally your last chance to blast those incoming torpedoes out of space before they slam into you.
And last but not least, thrust. This is all about agility. It's the stat that lets you change your speed each turn, so you can floor it and burn your engines to chase down an enemy, or you can slam on the brakes to line up that perfect, devastating shot.
All right, so you get your ships, right? But how does a battle actually, well, flow? Every round is broken down into a really clear sequence of events. It gives the whole fight a kind of rhythm. Let's take a look.
So, a round is split into three main parts. First up is the tactical phase. This is all the sneaky, strategic stuff. You figure out who goes first, you mess with the enemy using cyber warfare, and you launch your fighters. Then comes the real heart of the game, the activation phase. This is where you and your opponent take turns moving your big ships and, shooting at each other. And finally, you've got the end phase, which is kind of like the cleanup step. You figure out what happened with any boarding parties, try to patch up your ships, and get ready to do it all over again.
Okay, let's zoom in on that activation phase, because honestly, this is where the magic happens. This is where games are won and lost. Getting a handle on how movement and combat work together, it's just absolutely crucial.
Here's the big thing you have to remember. Your ships are always moving. They're not just sitting there. You have to move forward at your current speed. So the real trick, the real skill of a great commander, is using your thrust to speed up or slow down, and using your few precious turns to swing your ship into that perfect firing arc. To let loose with a massive broadside while making sure nobody can get a cheap shot at your engines.
Okay, so once you've moved, it's time to shoot. And you'll go through your weapons one by one, making your attacks. And right away, you're faced with a huge choice. Do you pour every ounce of firepower you have into one big, scary enemy ship to try and take it out? Or do you spread the love, or the laser fire, to damage a few different ships at once?
So, how powerful is your attack? Well, that's your attack dice pool. You get a certain number of dice just from your main weapon system. But the really cool part is, you can link up with other ships in your group that have the same weapon. You combine all those dice into one gigantic, overwhelming attack. It's awesome.
But, see, your opponent isn't just sitting there waiting to get hit. Before any damage actually happens, they get to fight back with their point defense. Just like we talked about before, they start rolling dice to shoot down your hits. It's this tense moment where your perfect attack could get completely picked apart before it even lands. And this is a great example of how it all comes together. Let's look at kinetic weapons. These are basically giant space cannons firing physical shells. As you can see here, the closer you are, the easier it is to hit. At under 10 inches, you only need a 3 or more. But look what happens when you get past 30 inches. You need a 6. The number you need to roll just skyrockets. It really drives home that positioning is absolutely everything.
So, your shot made it. It punched through the shields, it dodged the point defense fire, and it slammed into the enemy hull. What happens now? Well, this is where things get really cool and cinematic, because the damage system is all about things breaking in spectacular ways.
See, you don't just subtract hit points. When a ship takes damage, specific things start to break. You might get a hull fracture, or a shield collapse, or something even worse, like a drive leak that kills your speed, or scrambled sensors that throw off your aim. Every single hit makes the enemy ship weaker in a very specific, tactical way, which is just so cool.
And it gets even better. If your attack is powerful enough that you roll 2 of the same type of damage, well, that becomes a critical hit. And we're not talking about a little spark on the command deck anymore. This is a massive system failure. We're talking shields going down for good or huge gaping holes being torn in the hull.
And here it is, the final nail in the coffin. The rule for destroying a ship is actually super simple and super brutal. The moment a ship has more of those critical damage tokens than its mass value, it's gone. Boom. The whole thing is just overwhelmed by damage, and you take it right off the table. A spectacular end for a mighty warship.
So there you have it. That's your briefing, Commander. You know your ships, you know the rhythm of the battle, and you know what happens when the shooting starts. So picture it. You're on the bridge. You can see the enemy fleet warping in on the main view screen. The fate of this entire sector is in your hands. The only question is, what orders will you give?